So yeah, we're going to go over breadboards. They're one of the most basic circuit components you need to build anything really, because I mean, it's good for prototyping. They're great for testing circuits and then unconstructing and then reconstructing. It's the best way to start building circuits. Now you could also build solid states, solder things together and have a complete project, but if you mess up or think of something better afterwards, you can't. It's harder to deal with that. Breadboards are way better for this purpose. So breadboard. Yes. So we're going to learn the basics behind them and how to use them when building. Now a breadboard has three main areas. You got the power rails, the main board, and the gap. The gap is in yellow. Yeah. There's no connection. It's the simplest part. But let's go over these so you know how logically they work. Now underneath the power rails, there's a plus and minus. There is basically a wire that goes all the way across the power rails. Now my picture's going to show it horizontally, but I mean it depends on how you have the bread positioned, right? But the big thing is it goes that way. Horizontal for us right now. That power rail for the positive is always marked, positive. Yeah. This is very basic, right? Negative is always marked negative. They both go like that horizontally, as I'm showing you right now. But they could go vertically if you just, position the board, flip the board 90. If you just flip the board 90, it will change the rails. So I mean, I don't change it vertical and horizontal. For now, horizontal. That's basically power rails. If you ever want to hook up a battery, you'd hook up the positive to the positive, the red, the negative to the negative, the blue, and you could connect a wire going from the negative to the board, the main board, and a wire going from the positive to the main board to have things connected. That's the big advantage of power rails, is you can have multiple plus and minus connections on the board. So you can actually have multiple circuits built on this board with just from one battery. It makes it really easy to connect things. Secondly, we go to the main board. The main board, you might think, is connected like the power rails. You might think it's going horizontal for this picture. But that is wrong. It does not go horizontal. It actually goes, in this case, vertically. So in this case, it goes vertically. It goes, up and down. They're in blue for our picture, but yeah. So they do not go like power rails. At least they go in the opposite direction. Another big thing you might notice is, again, that gap, that yellow gap. There's no connection. You don't start from one side of the board and go across the gap. That wire does not connect across that gap. That gap is also often used for logic ICs and switches, as you might see in later projects I build. I like to put them in the middle on that gap. But that's basically, how breadboards are structured. So we're going to go ahead and build something using this now. So let's look at an actual breadboard. You got this thing here, it's called a modular breadboard. You got some letters up here, and you got some numbers on the side, which you could, use if you want, but I don't. We're going to build an LED circuit today, which is some of the most basic circuits you can build just using one LED. For this, you're going to need a resistor, an LED of course, and a battery with some wires. So if we take a resistor, we put it in the positive and to the board. Doesn't matter really where on the board, as long as it's on the board. Next, we're going to take the LED. Now, do remember, the long leg should be positive, and the short leg should be negative, which also connects to a flat side of the LED, which you can't see, but it's there. So put the long leg in the same line of the resistor, and you put the short leg across the gap. And lastly, you connect the battery. Red's positive, black's negative. So you put the positive in the positive. You put the black in the negative, or in this case, on the negative side, the LED. And you have the LED on. For this circuit, I put the black wire over here. But as you notice, I can move the spots anywhere in this line, right? Anywhere in this line, it will work. Now if you move down to the next line, nothing. If you move anywhere in this line, even right below the LED, it doesn't work. This is because, like the picture showed before, the board's connected. In this case, the board's flipped horizontally across underneath. These are great for prototyping because you can just remove the wires and move around and play around and see how the circuit works. So as I was saying earlier, it's way easier to move things in the circuit. Then when you look at the resistor, the same thing, right? You can move it anywhere in that line and it'll still work. The difference being is when the resistor's here in the positive, you can move it anywhere in this column now because it's flipped, right? Anywhere in this column and it will light up the LED still. Just when you're building these circuits, make sure that when you go from the power railing to the main board, to keep the logic, to keep in mind that the logic is flipped, right? One's horizontal, the other one's vertical, and vice versa. So yeah, that's basically how to build a circuit.